Welcome to you all. My name is Andrew Chung, Artistic Director of INNERchamber, and today for INNERchamber Connections, I've got Jim Mason. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Andrew.
So,
Nice to
Jim,
see you.
yeah, great to see you too. Jim is our tremendous oboist joining us for I've Lost the World, our upcoming concert on February 26th. So, Jim, when you and I first talked about this concert, and this is largely an idea that came from you, it turned out that there was quite a collection of arrangements, not arrangements, or reorchestrations of great orchestral works for oboe, clarinet, violin, cello, and piano that you had access to. I felt like these were commissioned over many years, and the reorchestrations were done by Trevor Wagler, some by Dan Warren. I've talked enough. Tell me a little bit about these reorchestrations or transcriptions.
Yeah, they've been a major part of this part of my career. These transcriptions came about when I was just wanting to play more chamber music with my wife and my other friends, and I thought also that I'm going to retire soon. It was done. It was done a number of years ago, and I retired from the orchestra in 2019. And I just thought I'm going to miss a lot of this repertoire. I'm going to miss playing it. So I picked the pieces that were very transparent. You didn't have a lot of brass, you didn't, but were beautiful works that would balance well with a piano and two strings and two winds.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorites, of course, is Tombeau de Couperin. Another favorite is Haydn 101, the clock that we're doing. And I mean, it just evolved over the years. There've been a lot of them. Yes, and yes, I commissioned all of these. I just these are, I thought the only way I'm going to get this done is if I do it myself in terms of getting it done. I didn't I wasn't the one who did the work. I paid for this stuff. And with Dan, he just wanted to do it. We're old friends, and he said, "Oh, I can do this. This will be great." And he did the Rückert-Lieder, which is fantastic. Um, and there are, I have a few more ideas for things to have done. We haven't played all the ones that we've already had done yet. So,
Oh, really? They haven't all been premiered?
well, there are a couple that will be doing this this year, later this year, and they'll be, they're worthwhile pieces. And I really think that in this age, in this time, they're valid. I think that transcribing this, especially over COVID, but now also, you can play these in a different way. I mean, as we're finding out, you're not bound to the whim of a conductor, or because of the size of a string section or the size of a wind section. You've got to play things really straight. We can do anything with this music, which I'm really looking forward to in our rehearsal process. It's going to be great.
Yeah, like you take some of the Mahler and some of the Brahms that you've had transcribed. I mean, there's a certain, when you have forces that large and an orchestra that large, the pacing is a little bit defined. Like there is a certain speed that you can go, a top speed you can go, and there's a speed, of course, it's too slow, but there's a certain weight to it. And then you break those ties and you free it up with the chamber version, and as you say, you can be more flexible. So,
Yeah.
I mean, on this concert, we've got three of these works, and they just work so well together. There's Tombeau de Couperin by Ravel.
Yeah.
There's the Rückert-Lieder by Mahler, and there's Symphony 101, nicknamed The Clock by Haydn. So let's start with the Haydn. So there's so many symphonies by Haydn. What drew you to this particular one?
Well, this one is pretty big in scope, but it's one that would transcribe easily for this size group. The big one, the one that everybody knows, 104, the London Symphony, what's referred to as the London, it's just too big. It's just too big. the lines would be hidden. There are way too many things that are just too thick. The clock has its own personality with it, with the slow movement, the tick tock, and it's just very, very accessible.
I love this symphony.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, despite what you say, it does seem pretty massive in scope. Like that middle, that slow movement, the tick tock,
Yeah.
goes everywhere. Like it's quite remarkable.
Yeah. No, you're right. But the thing about it is, in my opinion, a lot of it can be just accommodated by sticking the melodies in the right place with the right instrument for the right balance. And I think we're covered. And I think you'll find, in the rehearsal, well, all will be revealed. But
Wait, has this one been performed before, or is this one?
No,
Oh,
it hasn't been. It hasn't been. But
awesome.
but the thing is that one thing that about this that I find really cool is that it's called the clock because of the tick tock. If we take this at 60, which is the tempo of a clock, we're going to need paramedics. We're going to pass out because that's way too slow. But the important thing is just the constant dum 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 dum. It's just such a beautiful singing piece.
It is. It's so true. And like a lot of Haydn symphonies, there's a lot of first violin notes. I hope you've got some notes to play too, because
unbelievable. I was practicing it this morning, and I was going, what? Because the oboe part in the orchestra, it's a couple pages long. In this it's 13 pages, and I'm going, oh man, I didn't bargain for this. I gotta get this guy to change it.
oh man.
But no, it'll be it's great. It's fun, and it's fine.
That's awesome. Oh, looking forward to playing that so much.
Yeah.
And okay, so Tombeau de Couperin. So this piece to me, maybe because I'm just aware it shows up on, if there's an orchestral edition, Tombeau is always there, right? The excerpts from it show up. It just feels like it's a masterclass on the oboe.
Yeah.
Especially the prelude and the minuet. Tell me about how this fits into your world. Is it something that like you know how to play this and you relish it, or is it something that's like, damn, this is hard, and why did I choose this one? Or how does this sit with you nowadays?
Well, this piece fits into my oboe heritage, in that it was championed by the Philadelphia Orchestra back in the 30s, and Marcel Tabuteau was a famous oboe player, and I am a grand student of Tabuteau. When you talk to oboe players about this piece, and there's one other piece, there's Rossini's Scala di Seta, which is a difficult piece because of the articulation. When you talk to other oboe players, I don't care how old they are, you say, what two pieces do you spend most time on when you're getting ready for an audition? Always Scala di Seta and Tombeau de Couperin. I love this piece. I can remember I got started playing the oboe at a relatively late age. I didn't start playing until I was 16. And my undergraduate oboe teacher said, this is something that you have to learn. And he said, and I was so naive, but luckily so. He said, I want you to go out and I want you to get a recording of this, and I want you to listen to it every night before you go to bed. I did. I put it on, and it was my teacher playing it. My John Delancey was my grad school teacher, and he was playing it. And I love the piece. It's a gorgeous piece, and it's just a lot of fun to play. It is really, really difficult. There are all kinds of hard things in it, but it's a challenge, and it's important. I mean, I think as instrumentalists, we need to always have those challenges. That's how I feel.
So is it awkward to play? Like, did he not know how to write for oboe well, or is it just like
Well, he wrote really difficult things for oboe. Some are just perfect. They just lie really, really well. But others are monsters, and this has lying well parts and monster parts. There are things that, you know, 4 or 5 flat, you know, you're playing a lot in through the modulations of the chord progressions of the piece. You're playing a lot with in A flat major or D flat major, and it's a lot of cross fingerings, and it's a challenge. You know, but it's a fun challenge. It's a lot of there's a lot of things, and you know, I've been playing this piece. I've been working on this piece for 54 years. No, not 54, at least, well, more than 50 years. And it's still hard. It's still hard. And anybody will tell you that any oboe player that you talk to, oh yeah, you probably played Tombeau a lot. So you know, it's like you wake up. No, you have to practice it. You have to practice it because it's so exposed and it's fast. And there's a lot that can go wrong. So you have to practice it.
And then by the end of next Sunday, after the performance, your chops are going to be like magnifique, right? Like that's part of the joy of it. Like you're just going to feel like, yeah, I can play anything.
I can play anything. But the important thing about it, the great thing about it is that as much as you enjoy playing it, you'll enjoy looking back on playing it even more. You understand?
Exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. A narrow win, squeaked out a narrow win there, you know. That's awesome. No. Jim, thank you so much for helping put together this program, for joining me today. Really looking forward to this concert. And now we welcome Lillian Brooks, who's our guest mezzo-soprano for this concert, I've Lost the World. Hi, Lillian.
Hi, Andrew.
So great to see you.
Thank you. I'm so looking forward to this performance.
Me too. Me too. And we're 1 week to go as of today. So Lillian, the first time that I came across you and your singing was through Emily Hamper and Philip Addis, the co-directors of Stratford Summer Music, the Vocal Academy there. I think it was in the middle of COVID, and you know, Emily shared a recording. You're probably not supposed to know that, of you singing. I don't remember what it was. I feel like one of them was Mahler, actually, but and she just said, you know, Lillian is one of those singers who's ready to do something with professional, you know, professional context. She's so ready, and we're in the middle of COVID. And is there any way that, you know, we could create something? And I said, for sure. And Emily, with you on the program, going to be amazing. And then Emily left us.
Out west.
She went out west, I know, to an amazing job with Calgary Opera. So think back to the Vocal Academy that year. This is 2021. Did you do 1 year or 2 years there?
I just did the summer of 2021.
Yeah. And what do you remember from that time?
The main thing I remember is Emily and Philip with their encouragement. There's such teaching, I think, comes so naturally to them. And they know what they're doing. They know the work, they know, you know, technique, they know poetry. They just really know their stuff. And they're so encouraging and so helpful, but challenging, like willing to nurture and willing to push you, which I think is really important and is a really important thing, especially in like a focused program like that. So working with them was definitely a highlight. And I did bring all of the Rückert-Lieder to work on that summer with them, which was great. You know, Philip knows German so well, and you know, Emily is it comes so naturally to her. So yeah, working with them was fabulous. I loved Stratford. I think that before the vocal program, the last time that I had been in Stratford was a high school field trip to see Romeo and Juliet during the Stratford Summer Festival, which was so fun. It was a very cool experience. But getting to spend a week in Stratford was really great. You know, the swans and we sang on a boat, which was very Stratford, I feel like. So it was really fun. I enjoyed it. It was fun, and it was and enlightening, but it was also a really good, challenging way to work through some repertoire that some of the Mahler I've done before, but some of it was relatively new at that time. So it was great to just kind of hone in and focus on some of that.
Oh, great. And Emily, I mean, she has this amazing capacity to summon a whole orchestra through her 10 fingers. It's really,
Wow,
it's really extraordinary. Yeah, she's very, very special. Well, that's great. Did you say you sang on the barge too? Did you do that?
We did.
I hope you had a really, really calm seas day.
It was no, there was no wind. Everything with the water was still. It was, we lucked out, I think, but it was great.
That's tremendous. I'm glad. I'm glad. So, tell me a little bit more as a singer. I mean, you're young in your career, but I feel like for a singer, it's like your learning never ends. As a violinist, yes, my learning never ends, but I'm expected to show up with, in orchestra and professional settings with a certain tools in my tool belt already. And we don't really talk. They're like, oh, well, if you fix your bow hold by this, a couple millimeters here, if you're really, the angle of your bow is really kind of, we don't talk about that. But I feel like, that learning as a singer singing art song or singing opera, like it seems never ending. You're always adding to the tool belt. You're always adding. So like, what is that like? Like, how do you go out? You launch yourself into these programs or a week or 2 weeks at a time, maybe longer, and then you come back home and how do you synthesize all that?
Yeah, it's true. You're exactly right that you never stop learning. It feels like there's always going to be ways to improve your technique or completely change and work, from the bottom up again, which is a blessing and a curse for sure. Being in that position and knowing that that's kind of what's ahead. And it can be tricky sometimes too. Like you said, synthesize, working with various coaches, especially if you're doing multiple programs. I was working with the Calgary Opera Company a couple of years ago as well, and a big part of that program is bringing in singers, coaches, directors, a whole variety of different arts professionals. And it can take, you have to be really confident in, I think, you have to be confident in what you bring to each musical session, whether it's a performance or a coaching or just your private practice. You have to be really clear of, what do I do really well? Why am I coming to this session now? And I think that helps with, when you receive different veins of feedback, you can sort of try to tie it back into what works well for you. For me, for example, I love poetry and I love lyrical lines. So if that's something I know feels like it comes naturally to me and something that I can bring to every session, technique comments or interpretation comments, I can work that together into my already existing tool belt. As you said, Andrew, is great. But it can be tough. So it's good to kind of make sure that you're connected with, we call it our team, the people who you feel like always go back to and say, I was here singing, Mozart, and so said you should always do Portamenti in Mozart, which is, sacrilegious for several people. And say, what do you think? And you can work with people who know you as a person and who know the repertoire, to just reconnect and to decide for yourself artistically what you want to do. But it is really valuable to get different feedback, because you may hear something that you've heard before, but just explained in a different way can help as well to sort of guide you in your learning. And I think that's really important.
And then your voice, so it changes too over time, right? I mean, my violin essentially doesn't really change over time, but I think so. But your voice changes, and then you got to work with that and take in feedback and get suggestions for how your voice is changing and how to work with that.
That's definitely something that we always have to be thinking about. Is this works for me now? Like singing Cherubino comes really naturally to me, like in my early 20s. But I maybe won't be singing Carmen at that time, or Dalila or something like that. And it's always fun to explore the bigger repertoire and discover things about your voice and your instrument through that. But it's a journey. You always have to keep in mind, it's okay if this isn't perfect now. It's okay if it will never be perfect. It's better if it's never perfect, right? Because then you're not glued into doing something the same way every time. So it's, like I said, it's a blessing and a curse, but we're all here for the long haul. So it's great.
That's a great outlook. I love that. So is this the first Mahler song cycle that you've worked on?
No, so this is the first time I'm performing Rückert-Lieder in its entirety, which is really exciting. I've done the pieces here and there separately from each other for a while. Earlier this year, I performed for the first time Das Lied von der Erde, which is another intense song cycle by Mahler for mezzo and tenor. And it's not really for mezzo and tenor. It's 3 pieces for tenor and 3 pieces for mezzo, all at the same time. And that was a challenge. It's who needs a spin class when you can sing through Das Lied, because it's very taxing. But it's great. And it's, like I said, like it's one of those things where every time you come back to it, you're finding something new. And I feel the same thing with the Rückert-Lieder. Like it's the poetry is such a main focus for this song cycle. And it's great to put it all together and understand a little bit about what Mahler was thinking, what he was trying to do, and where the holes for interpretation are, like where the singer or the musicians can come in and make it their own. So it's great to put it together all at once.
So working on Das Lied was that was with orchestra?
It was just with piano, which was a good first pass at it. I think the orchestration is massive.
Yes.
And the sixth, there's 6 songs in that cycle, and the 6th is for the mezzo, and it's that piece itself is 30 minutes long. The whole, it's a challenging, it's like a shena. It's great. But I'm glad I was able to work it with piano. You can sort of hear parts of it that hopefully will inform one day doing it with orchestra. You can say, oh, I recognize this triplet or this 5/3 bar, from the time I did it with piano, and feeling like you have a good bass. That's always really cool.
And are there similarities between that part and the Rückert-Lieder in terms of what he asks your voice to do?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I'm probably Mahler's biggest fan. Like, you've definitely chosen the right singer, because I'm a huge Mahler nerd. But there's absolutely similarities. Like I said, Mahler is I feel so focused on lyricism, and it's complex harmonies. It's, can be challenging, not so intuitive intervals all the time. But it does all make sense. Like, it's cohesive. So the Das Lied was the first time I scanned through the score, I looked at it and was like, what's happening in some of these parts? Like, it seems so disparate and complex, but the more time you spend with it, and the more, that's a specific song cycle, because it was during a period in Mahler's life that was filled with lots of, tragedy. So you can feel that coming through the music. So it's very cathartic. And I feel the same way with the Rückert-Lieder. The poetry is different. Some of them are very sweet, like little nuggets of candy almost. And then you get Mitternacht and Ich bin der Welt, which are long and passionate, and there's something different in every piece, but I think that is really indicative of Mahler. And you as the musician have to be it's like putting together puzzle pieces. They're all there, it's all there on the page for you. It's just about putting it together in a way that feels right to the music, and feels right for you as the performer, and feels true to your interpretation.
It's extraordinary stuff, isn't it? Like, if you look at your vocal line alone, and you might, having not heard it or imagining that you haven't heard it before, it has its own, shape. It has its own, phrasing, and then you add the layers, instrumental layers underneath, and harmonic layers underneath, and then you add the poetry to it, and it's just absolutely jaw-dropping what he manages to achieve. Those 2 songs that you mentioned in particular, those to me seem like the big ones.
They are.
A set of 5 songs. You'll say them one more time, because I can't pronounce them.
So Mitternacht and Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen are the 2 longer format pieces.
Yes. And those translate as?
Mitternacht is at the midnight hour. And Ich bin der Welt this is for what the concert is named. It's I've lost the world, or I'm lost to the world. So they're complex, and it's easy to look at those pieces the first time, or listen to them the first time, and hear that they're slow. The tempo markings are slow and sort of minor-y kind of feeling, and think that it's really sad and somber. Especially Ich bin der Welt, the context of the piece is that it's, I feel lost to the world. I wonder if the world misses me. I wonder if it knows that I don't care what happens. But I think it's about finding peace for yourself in that, and we'll hear it later in this month, but it ends saying, oh, I'm fine. I'm here. I'm in my heaven with my song and my love. And that's all I really need. And it's finding those moments of that brightness in a complex, longer format piece that can be emotionally and physically tiring, that I think make them really valuable. There's always lightness, or there's always, not comedy in a ha-ha way, but irony or a comic outlook on life. And I think that those two pieces specifically do incorporate that really well. Mitternacht is physically very challenging because of, especially with full orchestra, it's massive orchestration, and it's all in 5/2, which is really long, and it's very, very slow. But it's beautiful, and it's like, it's celebratory, and I love it. So they're same thing as Das Lied. It's very cathartic, I find.
This has been great. Lillian, thank you so much for joining us on this program. We're going to have a great week of rehearsal. Really looking forward to February 26th. And this will be live and performed live at Revival House, and then live streamed to our audiences at home. And this is called I've Lost the World, February 26th from 7 o'clock. Thanks again, Lillian.
Thank you, Andrew.